And I'll tell you, situational awareness, and this drives a lot by some of the things that you've discussed in your programs. I've sat through several of your programs. We're trying to build some of that stuff out to where when you say, hey, I had a situational awareness, this incident situational awareness contributed to this incident, we're trying to capture more information about that. Well, how was situational awareness? What was your, what did you see? What were the things that you were trying to capture? Where did you get distracted? And we're trying to kind of draw that out a little bit more because it's such a big part of what we do.
Stay tuned. Coming up on this episode is part 1 of my 2-part interview with John Russ, the program manager for the National Firefighter Near-Miss Reporting System, as we talk about this incredibly valuable learning resource for first responders. But first, let's hear from our amazing sponsor, Midwest Fire. At Midwest Fire, they know better efficiency results in less waste, and it adds value to every truck they deliver. That's why they have worked hard to implement lean manufacturing processes throughout their factory. Lean manufacturing means a lower cost to build, with the savings passed on to you. To learn more, visit MidwestFire.com. Hello and welcome to episode 305 of the Situational Awareness Matters show. I am your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this program is to help improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-stress, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from my office here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Earlier this week, I did a North Shore tour and presented programs for the Pike Sandy Britt Fire Department and the International Falls Fire Department, both in northern Minnesota. Today's feature segment is sponsored by the Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. The Academy trains and certifies your members on situational awareness skills essential for improving high-risk decision-making outcomes. To learn more about this highly acclaimed program, visit samatters.com and click on the Online Academy tab under the Training section at the top of the homepage. All right, let's jump into today's feature segment, part 1 of my 2-part interview with John Russ, the program manager for the National Firefighter Near-Miss Reporting System, as we talk about this incredibly valuable learning resource for first responders. Hey everyone, it's Rich Gassaway, host of the Situational Awareness Matters show, and we are super excited to have with us today as our guest, John Russ, the program manager from the National Near-Miss Reporting System. And the reason this interview is especially exciting for me is that back when I was doing my research on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making, the National Near-Miss Reporting System was even though it was newer at the time, was a significant source of information for me for responders who had near-miss events. And I was able to draw a lot of details about how these near-miss events were occurring. So since then, I have always been a big fan of the near-miss reporting system. And in fact, in just about every single program that I do, I'm polling the attendees about their knowledge of the near-miss reporting system and then telling them about the value of the near-miss reporting system and providing them with the website link. And even some of the people who've been in the programs have been people who've reported near misses. So I always give them a chance to kind of summarize what their near miss was that they reported into the system and their lessons learned. The value is you don't have to be in a class to get this information. You can go to the near miss reporting system, and there is a massive database, and I'll let John talk about that, of near miss reports and data and demographics that are very helpful to responders to learn in advance about how near miss events occur and lessons learned on how to prevent them. So let me pause and say, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Now, the last time we were together here, John, was just recently at the International Association of Fire Chiefs Volunteer and Combination Officers Section Symposium in the Sun in Clearwater Beach, Florida. Not a bad venue to be in November.
Not at all.
But we met up there, and I invited you to come on to the show and to share some of the history of the near miss reporting system, and then bring us up to speed and take us into the future, because there's some pretty exciting things on the horizon. But let's start with a walk down memory lane and take us back to the beginning of how the near miss reporting system was created and bring us up to where we are today.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we started, we rolled out the site in 2005. We launched it at the IAFC's Fire Rescue International Conference in 2005. And before that, we had recognized that some industries have really kind of gotten down some good habits and seen some changes in their safety culture and improving operations. The aviation industry in particular, the military, the nuclear and electrical industries, and essentially the fire service was looking to steal that information, right? We wanted to try and figure out, hey, how are they doing this so well? And one of the key contributors, especially with the aviation industry, was their firefighter or their near miss reporting system. So we got together with the aviation industry. They were very very welcoming for us to kind of learn from them and what all they did. They started it way back in the 70s and late 60s, early 70s. And we talked with them and put together a reporting system that we were able to roll out through the interwebs. And there was three main fundamental core requirements really to make this thing successful. It had to be anonymous, right? There was no way that we could go out and say, well, firefighter Joe did this and firefighter Samantha did that, and here's their story pushing out. We felt, especially in that age of the fire service, that would be a major hurdle. So making it anonymous was absolutely paramount. Of course, free is always good. Firefighters love free things. So we can't have anything to where it requires you to purchase. We wanted this available to all firefighters across the scope of the country, whether you work out of a small volunteer department with a fire rig in your neighbor's barn, or to the largest metropolitan fire department with unlimited resources. We wanted this available for everybody. So the free and anonymous portions are incredibly important. And then the third portion is we need to make sure that it was non-punitive, and that kind of ties in with the anonymous. If we have somebody that goes and reports a near miss, and let's say it is something that was an error or something that they did wrong per se, and they learned from that and they wanted to share those learnings, we wanted to make sure there was no repercussions. So that kind of ties back in with the anonymity. Free, anonymous, and non-punitive is really what we gain after. Throughout the year since 2005, we've learned a lot. We've had our own near misses, I guess, within the organization. In 2012, we rolled out kind of our version 2.0. We made some adjustments to our website, to our report gathering. There was some information that we were hoping to kind of glean a little bit more out of. Other information we found that maybe wasn't so pertinent and so important. So we're constantly trying to make sure that we're capturing the information that we need to share the story, to allow some analytics of the contributing factors, but still make it extremely user-friendly for our firefighters that are submitting these reports. Nobody wants to sit down and fill out a report for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So we really want to try and engage our users and make it as easy as possible. Since 2012, well, I'll say from 2005 to about 2012, 2013, we really were focusing on trying to get people to just report to our system. So we would go fire department to fire department, conference to conference, every opportunity we could. We were putting pieces of paper in front of firefighters. Hey, share your story, share your story, share your story. And we would show them how the reviewing process would work. Any report that gets submitted to our system gets at least 2 different subject matter experts to review it. And really the main purpose of that is to ensure it's anonymous. We want to make sure that anybody who reports to us, we scrub out any information that could potentially lead to saying, oh, well, that happened to, Jane Smith at Pumpkinhead Fire Department in Mississippi, right? So we wanted to make sure that we scrub that information as reviewers. So sometimes it takes a few days to publish out a report, but we want to make sure that it is an anonymous report. We kind of shifted our focus after 2012 to concentrate a lot more on, hey, we have close to 6,000 near-miss reports in our system, and there are some really good stories here with extremely valuable lessons to be shared. Beforehand, I wouldn't say that we weren't sharing these stories, but we really wanted to focus on, hey, we need this information to get out to the fire service. So since then, we really kind of restructured our marketing and restructured everything to try and promote that, hey, when you submit a report, there's going to be somebody that more than likely is going to write an article about it. There's a high likelihood it's going to be one of our reports of the week. We send out a report every week. You can sign up for that email address. Sign up your email address to receive that. That's the only, spam mail or anything. We're not going to send you anything else, but we are going to send you out a report of the week that says, hey, here's a near miss that happened. Our subject matter experts write a little bit of extra information about it, provide you with some extra materials. So if you submit a report, there's a high likelihood that we're going to try and utilize your report in some way so we can share the lessons that you learned and the contributing factors that you had to really kind of gain awareness across the fire service, not only nationally, but internationally. We started to promote in Canada, in the United Kingdom. This past year, and I've just got some notes jotted down, we had over 102,000 page views on our website, and those were from 141 different countries. We have only about 80 to 85% of our reports or our users on our website are from the United States. We have 15% coming from Canada, Mexico, United Kingdom. We have folks from Australia. Right now, we're seeing a spike in near-miss users in Australia just because of all the fires they're having there. And some of our U.S. contingency firefighters going over there sharing, hey, here's a system for you to use. It's completely free. Anybody can get on there. You don't even have to log in. You click on Browse Reports and start searching. So we're seeing a lot of use internationally now too. So things are really exciting. We are now working on version 3.0. We launched our new report gathering system at Fire Rescue International this past year in 2019. And we've kind of restructured our back end again to make sure, again, it's more user friendly for our individuals. We don't want to ask you questions that don't apply. So we've created some systems in place where if you click on a certain thing or select a certain thing that's applicable to your incident or your near miss, we'll ask you a few more questions. But what we don't want to see is get you blasted with, hey, here's 20 questions about weather when your near miss happened indoors, right? So that doesn't apply. We don't want to bog you down with that sort of stuff. So we've redone the back end. We have a new tech company that is helping us out with this, Envisage Technologies. They run the Acadis portal, which several fire departments, a lot of states utilize that for training certifications. Our state in Tennessee, we use the Acadis portal for anything and everything that goes through our fire commission or through our state academy. They also do a FirstForward, is a training marketplace, and also a exposure tracking. I know exposure tracking right now is a big deal in the fire service, trying to capture not just those bloodborne pathogens and things that we've always collected, but events such as post-traumatic stress, any sort of interior fire attack where even if you're wearing all your PPE, that still can count as an exposure. You're in an IDLH situation. So they offer an opportunity for you to capture that information, to secure it in some form. If God forbid, unfortunately, if you have to use it later on down the line for any sort of legal practices, you have a record. And the great thing is they offer that completely free. You can go on their website, FirstForward, and just start entering in your experiences, your exposures. So they have been very, very good to us at the Firefighter Near Miss Reporting System. And they've even started we started talking about what's next. And with regards to the Firefighter Near Miss program, we have a lot of things coming out, hopefully in the very near future. We've been working and talking a lot with them about what our needs are and what we think are vital for the betterment of the fire service to utilize our system. So they've redone the back end. They're working on improving our publishing capabilities to hopefully reduce that amount of time that it takes for us to, once a report is submitted, to push out to the system. But then also, we want to improve our search features. Right now, I'll be very honest and candid. I'm not a big fan of how difficult it is sometimes to find reports in our near-miss reporting system. So we're looking at some new technologies to improve that, to where when you go onto our site and start typing in whatever topic, you get the reports that you're actually looking for. That's extremely important to us. We're looking at some ways for when you submit a report, you actually will get some links and some things that are applicable to your situation. So let's say you put in a near miss about you almost got struck on the interstate. We want to make sure that there are some resources for you that you can maybe learn a little bit more. Hey, I had this near miss, but when I hit submit, there's 4 different training programs right here, or 5 different articles, or 7 different programs out there that are trying to address this situation. And that's just being a good steward to the fire service as a whole, right? We're allowing our fire service professionals to get the resources that they're looking for to help them prevent these things from happening. So those are our 2 big things that we're working on with the technology piece. I'm really excited for what the future is bringing with that. We're still discussing some things and how to ins and outs. I'd like to say that it's going to be ready by this summer. The tech company is probably going to be screaming at me if I tell them, hey, we're going to have this by a certain date. But they are working diligently to try and make this thing happen and improve our features. And I'm very, very thankful to that organization, the Envisage Technologies.
Oh, wow. It's more than just a place to go and report a near miss. There's a lot of robust features that are existing and coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've had a lot of fire departments ask us about, and I know you and I have talked a lot about contributing factors and how, using things like our old annual reports and stuff like that to address situational awareness and all that, decision-making, human error. I feel like we've not done our due diligence some with our analytics features. So we're looking at improving that. We're actually, again, kind of like what near miss was founded off of. We always look around and say, hey, who's doing this really, really well, and we want to essentially steal or copy or utilize those sorts of ideas. I really like how the U.S. Fire Administration sets up how you can analyze and kind of pull off some statistics on firefighter fatalities. So we're kind of mimicking that sort of operation to where you can really narrow down your search of, hey, I need to know about contributing factors, but I work for a small fire department. It might not be applicable if I'm looking at reports that came from major metropolitan fire departments. Or I'm an individual that's 35 years old. I don't necessarily feel like maybe the near misses that are happened to our 20-year-olds or our 55-year-olds may be applicable. So we're looking at being able to narrow down that scope to where you can really get the data points that you want. And then utilize that sort of information. Say, all right, well, situational awareness for somebody within my fire department or with my experience level, and then provide reports that you can actually read. Statistics, I went through and I got my master's. I went through and got a thesis. I'm putting in for the executive fire officer program, so I know research is going to be a big part of my life coming up, and statistics are extremely important. However, one thing I've really learned is without the story, statistics can be a little bit of a flop, right? You can really manipulate those numbers to kind of tell what you want it to tell. So one thing that's really important to me is when you pull up statistics on firefighter near-miss reports, I want to make sure those stories come with you. So when you select, hey, I want to know about near-miss incidents on the roadways, I want you to be able to have that ability to read through all the near misses that are pertinent or filling out those statistics that you're looking for. So you can capture those stories. A lot of people ask me, hey, what, with the statistics or your analytics, what's the question you're trying to answer? And I don't know if for sure the question you want to answer without knowing the stories behind the statistics. So that's something that's very near and dear to me, is making sure that when we start providing some of these analytic features that we're looking to do in the future, that the stories come with those.
Nice. Now, I think I heard you say, I can't remember if it was before we started the recording or after we started the recording, but so we'll cover it now. Did you say that there were something more than 6,000 reports?
Yeah, we're pushing about pretty close to 6,000 reports in our firefighter near-miss reporting system. Of course, our reporting numbers are not quite where I'd like them to be. We have some programs and some projects that we're looking to address that with. I wish people would submit more reports, no doubt. But like I said, in 2012, we really kind of figured it's really important that we need to push this stuff out. So we haven't probably done quite our due diligence on promoting people to submit, but I will say that I think our uses have increased dramatically. Our subject matter experts alone published 30 different articles this past year in various publications on near misses, using the reports to get out there. We spoke at 7 different conferences this past year talking about specific reports, right? Whenever we go out and talk about near-miss reporting, I always am very hesitant on just saying, well, here's everything that's going on with our system. I always like telling the stories of the reports that we're getting, especially some of the new ones that we come in that we're like, hey, we just had this amazing near-miss report that really kind of turns people's heads. Hey, this is something that could absolutely happen, or this is something that happened in my fire department 2 years ago. So it's more than just talking about near miss and the reporting system and what all we're doing, but anytime we have an opportunity to say, hey, we have this great near miss, let's highlight this one, or this individual really put a lot of thought and effort into this report, and we feel there's a bunch of lessons to be shared. I'll tell you one, and we've had this one for a little while, but I think it's really pertinent to what we're seeing in the fire service today with post-traumatic stress. We had an individual submit a report, and he was on a single family structure fire, bread and butter fire, no big deal. He goes in, they're doing a quick search. They're asked to vacate. They're finishing up their primary search. They're getting ready to evacuate or exit the structure so the interior lines can go in and finish their mop up. When he does this, he does a quick peek down, goes about halfway down the steps, realizes this is a basement fire. So he turns around to go up the stairs to notify his engine company that's at the top of the steps, hey, we have a basement fire. And he realizes that the door had shut behind him and there was no doorknob exiting the basement stairs. And this fire begins to progress, and he's banging on the door. Command actually ends up calling for them to evacuate the structure. And this guy is in his mind thinking, hey, this is it for me. Luckily, another crew had opened the door thinking maybe that was the way out and allowed him to exit the structure. So pretty substantial near miss, right? I learned a lot just operationally, but that was just the first paragraph. Yeah. The next 3 paragraphs, he talked about the post-traumatic stress that he had from this event. He went into even further detail about the care that he received. And, thinking about it, this is going to be, this guy would be perfect for one of your podcasts. And I would love to get him on your show, because I do know that he's sharing this publicly And I think this would be an awesome opportunity for you to discuss with this guy. He has a really powerful story that he tells.
Well,
So I share that near miss just from the standpoint of when you start reading these things, you think, oh, this is about X, Y, Z. And then you learn from these near misses that there's 20 or 30 different learning points from these various stories that we're getting.
Well, because you didn't and probably can't and won't say who that was, I did a podcast with a firefighter who was in the precise circumstances that you have just described.
So he might already have been on your show and I missed it, but
I can't say with certainty that that is the person that you are speaking of, but I will say that I have done a podcast episode with someone whose circumstances identically match.
Like I said, I can't release names and all that.
No, I get it.
Very seriously. But it makes me really glad to hear that he's sharing his story. And we have so many like that. And, things that we've talked about in the past, usually we try and capture the contact information for people who submit. And of course, we don't release that. That doesn't get published. In fact, we scrub it from the report when we're done. But we do try and reach out to those individuals. The reason we ask for that information is we'll have somebody write a report, and you can tell they spent 2 or 3 minutes. But when we call them back, it's like word vomit. These guys will keep on the phone with you, and you experience this as well. When you get an opportunity to just have that discussion, they'll spend 3 hours with you and tell you so many amazing things. And that's why I love what you're doing with the podcasts is, from a reporting standpoint, we can capture some great information and we try and push that out. But having that interview, listening to the guy in his own words or the gal in their own words say, this is what happened to me. And these are, it's extremely powerful. So I love what you're doing. And we're actually, when we come across certain near misses, we actually encourage them to follow up with you and say, hey, if you're willing to tell your story live, here's an amazing opportunity for you to do that. I know you're always looking for guests, and I think this partnership now that we've got going on, I'm really excited about, because you have capabilities of doing things, unfortunately, that I can't with that live podcast in it.
Well, we share the same mission, and as you know, you're about giving it all out for free, and the podcast that I do is all for free as well. All somebody has to do is subscribe to it. In the narrative of them telling it in their own voice, in detail, almost in slow motion sometimes, is really a powerful emotional connection. That's the whole reason I launched this show to begin with, was to give a platform to those who've had near misses to tell their story in their words. And it's been stunning for me how many times I've been left speechless from the stories that people tell, and how close they came to death. And in fact, one of my favorite things to ask them, John, is, when this was all done, did you go home and tell your family what happened? And what did that conversation sound like? And how many of them never did, and I'm like, well, you better have that conversation now, because the podcast is out there.
Sure.
You don't want your significant other to hear for the first time how close you came to dying by listening to a podcast. You might want to tip them up on that.
It's so funny. I work for a fire department right outside of Nashville. In fact, my battalion chief has been on your show, Chief Collins, Brian Collins, and his story about almost falling out of an apparatus with a seatbelt issue. Yeah. I had my own near miss where I had some soffit collapse while I was up on a ladder trying to get at a second story window to do some fire suppression. And I was so mad because one of my deputy chiefs informed my wife before I had an opportunity to tell her. And I was on the fence of whether I was even going to say anything to her or not. She's very understanding of what we do. She's in law enforcement, so she's very understanding about what we do and the dangers that we have. And I was really upset with my chief at first for saying something, but you're right. It's pretty important to have those conversations with your family, and it was really it was so easy to have that conversation at the kitchen table in the firehouse, and it was so difficult to have that conversation at my own kitchen table at my own home. So
yeah. When you go home and tell your wife what happened, she's not going to say you rocked it, dude.
yeah, that's not the conversation.
She's going to say, "What were you thinking? You know, you have me. We have kids to come to. Stop that."
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that is so true. I've heard about some local application that the IAFC has been working on. There's a little bit of buzz in the wind there. What's this project about, and how's it going to be a benefit to the fire departments, and when do you see that rolling out?
So I will tell you that this project has kept me up at night. This has been one of those things that, back even when we first started, we've had some folks very interested in collecting near misses within their own fire department. When we started, again, we were so worried about the concepts of making sure that it's anonymous and non-punitive. We were really hesitant on promoting individual departments to actually collect, right? We were saying it in 2005, 2006, 2007, hey, just promote them to share on our national side, and then you would be able to review whatever subject you want to look at. But we were really hesitant on encouraging individual departments to collect and review their own reports. Since then, I think concepts such as just culture of safety, looking at human error in the standpoint of not so much being punitive, while I think the fire service still has a long way to go, I think you're seeing more and more of that in today's fire service, where we're kind of saying, okay, there's violations of, basically willful incidents, and, hey, I know I'm supposed to wear my my seatbelt, but to heck with that, chief. I don't like what he has to say anyway, so I'm just not going to wear my. Those are willful, absolutely some disciplinary action probably needs to be put in place there. But when you look at true human error, especially with the concepts of, and again, aviation industry, nuclear industry, electrical industry, with their human performance improvement stuff, really promote how if you can get away from the disciplinary aspects of human error, you'll and you kind of shift your culture into a culture of learning, you'll see a dramatic difference, not only from the standpoint of safety, but operationally altogether. So with that being said, and we're trying to promote that out a little bit more. There's some training programs we're looking to try and develop this next year. I guess back in about 2013-14, we've recognized maybe it is time to try and come up with some solution to where individual fire departments can develop their own near miss system, right? So at first we decided, hey, let's just take what we have, mirror it, and allow that, because like I said, every near miss report goes through a review process. We'll just allow individual departments to have that first review, to just take a look at their report, grab whatever they want to grab, and then move on. I brought that on back to my own fire department, and I pushed this out, and like firefighters do, they were brutally honest with me. We got through, we did a few reports, and when we talk about near misses, it's not just where you have non-injuries or non-traffic accident events. We have probably about 25% to 30% of our reports include somebody getting hurt or include some sort of property damage accident. But the lesson to be shared with that is extremely powerful, and we want to make sure that a lesson gets shared. So of course we're going to use that. So using that same model, where we're including injuries and accidents, the firefighters in my fire department came back to me and said, John, this system is terrible. This is awful. I already have 5 forms that I have to fill out when I get hurt, and now you just gave me number 6. Same thing with property damage accidents. So we kind of went back to the drawing board. And the other thing with that, fire chiefs are really, I won't say just fire chiefs, but predominantly fire chiefs are extremely data driven, rightfully so. And the analytics that we had put together for our system, we had put together more for a marketing tool, right? We had our contributing factors that we could collect, but other than that, we were trying to capture, okay, who's using our system. So we were trying to gather age, gender, their race, Hispanic or non-Hispanic, things like that, to try and drive our marketing. Okay, who do we need to try and go after to gather more near-miss reports? The fire chief was like, hey, this is great that I'm finding out that I'm having near-miss reports from people who are between the age of 25 and 30, but that doesn't really help me. So we went completely back to the drawing board, and we developed what we called the Insight 360 program. And there was conceptually some things that we were wanting to launch. We wanted to make sure, first of all, that we lessen this muddy water of reporting for injuries and accidents. Like anybody who does any sort of statistical analysis or try and gather analytics or does any sort of surveys or anything like that, anytime you ask the same question twice, you're going to get differing answers. And we found this with our injury reporting, right? If you have 5 different reports where you have to put some sort of narrative, maybe your INFIRS report you do first and you leave a pretty good sized narrative that leads a lot of information. But by the 5th time that you have to share the story of what happened, it turns into, well, I got hurt, period, right? That narrative really doesn't do much good, but you're tired of filling this stuff out. So what we wanted to accomplish is we wanted to develop a system that allowed individual fire departments to be able to download and create their injury packet of forms. But then when the individual firefighters go onto the system and fill it out, they're only having to fill out their name once. They only have to describe the event once, the date once, the location once. And then when they hit submit, they have the capability of printing out pre-populated packet of information. So it's better for the end user. It streamlines the process of injury reporting. And that was one of our main goals. The other thing too is, and we've already mentioned this, the analytics piece that we're wanting to do. We're wanting fire departments not only internally to be able to look at their near misses, their injuries, the accidents. We want to be able to ensure that they all can tie contributing factors. We don't like using the term root cause so much because finding root cause, I think it takes a lot to really, you can use like the 5 whys or all these different things, but I think you really have to be on your game and do a lot of work to get all the way down to, okay, our root cause was this. But if you can say, oh, well, we had 5 contributing factors to this event, and you start addressing those 5 contributing factors, I think that's just as quality in addressing your issues as it is trying to get down to that one thing. So we use contributing factors and being able to look at, hey, here's 4 contributing factors that we've seen in 3 injuries, 2 accidents, and 5 of our near misses, then that provides a little bit more importance, a little bit more guidance on where to go. And like I mentioned before, stories are extremely important. So as you go through this process, when you select, hey, I've got a 40% back injury issue, we want you to be able to click on that 40% and populate the stories from those back injuries to where you can actually say, okay, I'm not going to just blindly put together a training program of proper lifting techniques because I have 40% back injuries, when it could be something completely unrelated. Maybe it's you have one apparatus that's specifically high up and you had back injuries when they're stepping off with their SCBA on their back, right? Or, I think a lot of times we look at these analytics and we just kind of blindly throw stuff at it, and without those stories, we miss it. So that was what the intent of Insight 360 was going to do. We worked with our previous tech company at length, 2 or 3 years of trying to get this thing developed right. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out with our previous tech company. And that was one of the driving factors of moving to Envisage. We sat down with them. We told them what we were needing. They were completely on board. Of course, this needs to tie into national or our international firefighter near miss reporting system, but we needed an opportunity for individual fire departments to have a process to look at these things. And we, by transitioning to this new tech company, we're still really, again, I was hoping to have this thing launched 2 years ago. We hit some snags. I was hoping to have this thing launched last year. We've hit some snags, but I'm a firm believer in Envisage Technologies and what their capabilities are. And again, I don't want to say that it's going to be done by a certain date, but they are frantically working on developing this using our subject matter experts to put together a program through their FirstForward application to where individual fire departments will be able to track their own near misses.
Thank you, John Russ, for sharing your passion for improving firefighter safety. Remember, this is part 1 of a 2-part interview, so be sure to check back next week for the second half of my interview with John. In case you weren't aware, this show was launched back in 2014 with a purpose, and that was to give a platform to those who've had near misses to share their stories. When I'm on the road delivering situational awareness classes, attendees share amazing near miss stories with me. Their stories motivated me to launch this podcast so their lessons could be shared with a bigger audience, you. The Situational Awareness Matters show, podcasted as SA Matters Radio, and our companion video program, SA Matters TV, on YouTube, along with other videos that we've posted there, have enjoyed over 1 million views, listens, and downloads. And I'm so honored to be able to provide this free platform for these incredible lessons to be shared. And if you like the show, please do me a solid favor and subscribe. For the audio version of the show, you can search for SA Matters Radio on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio. For the video version, you can simply subscribe to SA Matters TV on YouTube. Since 2007, our instructional team and consultants have helped more than 1,300 organizations and more than 86,000 individuals improve high-risk decision-making, including fire, police, EMS, industry, military, business, medical, utility, transportation, aviation, energy production, biotechnology, and so many more. If someone you know works in a high-risk, high-consequence, decision-making environment, then we're here to help improve their safety and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all, and that is to go home from work whole and healthy every day to the ones who love them. I'd like to take a moment to honor and thank some of our recent program and consulting clients. The Pike Sandy Britt Fire Department in Virginia, Minnesota. The International Falls Fire Department in International Falls, Minnesota. The Novellis Corporation in Oswego, New York. The Lincoln County Fire Chiefs Association in Denver, North Carolina. The Sandoval County Fire and Rescue Department in Albuquerque, New Mexico. If you're interested in where we're going to be upcoming, here's our upcoming events schedule. On January 30th, I'll be at the Evans Fire Department in Evans, Colorado. On February 3rd, I'll be at the Waconia Fire Department in Waconia, Minnesota. February 7th and 8th, I'll be at the South Carolina Fire Chiefs Association in Columbia, South Carolina. On February 10th, I will be doing a program for ExxonMobil's Global Response Team in Houston, Texas. On February 12th, I'll be doing a program for a biotechnology company in Rhode Island. On February 18th through 21, the Bloomfield Fire Department in Bloomfield, New Jersey is hosting 4 days of our live virtual training. So their people will be in a classroom in Bloomfield. I will be here in my office. Actually, I'll be in Texas, but doing live virtual training for Bloomfield. February 18 and 19, I will be at the Tascasita Fire Department in Houston, Texas. February 20th at the Champions Emergency Services District, also in Houston, Texas. February 24th, I'll be at the Delaware City Refining Company in Delaware City, Delaware. March 5th at the Center for Public Safety Excellence Conference in Orlando, Florida. March 10th at the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute's National Fire Service Staff and Command Program in Annapolis, Maryland. On March 14th at the Oregon EMS Conference in Pendleton, Oregon. March 16 and 17 at the Kipsap County Training Officers Association Conference in Washington. March 23rd, the Spring Fire Department in Spring, Texas. March 24th, at the ExxonMobil Corporate School on the campus of Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. And rounding out the month on March 25, I will be back in Spring, Texas, doing another program for the Spring Fire Department. If you want to see the locations of all the upcoming events, just head over to our website, samatters.com. Click on the red tab labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. The tab's about halfway down the homepage, so you just got to scroll down a little bit and it'll be right there in the center. If you're interested in talking with me about conducting a situational awareness assessment for your company or hosting a training program, just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage and I will give you a call. And remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we're sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 305 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you to my guest, John Russ, the program manager from the National Firefighter Near-Miss Reporting System. Thank you to our platinum sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, the Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. And thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.